We're now joined in our Washington bureau by Eric Holder, the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States in the Clinton administration. At one point, the acting Attorney General. It was on his watch that the U.S. had to deal, as did he, with the USS Cole attack and the embassy bombings in Africa. Mr. Holder, thanks very much for your time. I want to just ask you first whether there is anything you see that suggests that in any way this attack on the United States could have been prevented.
Oh, it's hard to say that. You know, we get intelligence things that you look at all the time, and certainly we saw things in the past about the possible hijacking of planes. I never saw anything to suggest that planes would be used in the way that they were here. One of the things that I think you mentioned earlier, this is obviously going to spawn, I think, investigations, and it should, to find out why we didn't know more about what actually happened. And I suspect in the course of those investigations we'll get the answer to the question you just posed.
But John McWethy at the Pentagon said a while ago that the military had, among other things, gamed a situation like this. Do you believe the Clinton administration, of which you were part, could have done more for Homeland Security, as it's called?
Well, I think we did a good job. We tried to anticipate those things that were most likely to happen, tried to plan for those things, even those things that were not likely to occur. We took appropriate steps after bin Laden struck. We were successful in preventing the attacks related to the millennium change. You know, we did the best that we could, and I'm not at all certain that there were any specific things we might have been able to do that would have prevented this. I mean, obviously you have to look at the question of intelligence. Is there a way in which you could have found out about the planning for this? I suspect this is something that lasted over the course of many, many months, and it is there that I would focus my attention.
You're pretty experienced at government officials under pressure. As you look at the public officials today, the President and the Attorney General and the other members of the national bureaucracy, do you see any strain?
No, I think they're actually handling themselves pretty well. I think obviously you saw some emotion come out of the President today, and I think that's very understandable. I'm sure that there are a lot of meetings in the Situation Room. People at the Justice Department are having to render legal opinions about the kinds of steps that are being considered by the President, by people in the military. I'm sure there are a lot of late nights that people are putting in, but I think overall Attorney General Ashcroft, President Bush have been handling themselves quite well.
Much of the evidence now being obtained in this investigation is being obtained under something called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is pretty much equivalent, I think some people believe, to martial law. As a result, do you believe that civil liberties have effectively been suspended in the country?
No, I don't think so. The FISA Act, about which you speak, is something that is pretty routinely used. It involves the monitoring of conversations using means that I can't really get into to protect our country. These are things that are done on a day-to-day basis, totally consistent with the law. In order to use the FISA Act, you have to go to a special court here in Washington, D.C., and a federal judge has to sign off on something that is prepared after careful review within the Department of Justice. So the use of FISA and FISA warrants is not something that is inconsistent with what we have done over a great many years.
Okay, FISA, of course, being the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Just one final question. You were there for the Cole. You were there for the bombings in Tanzania and in Kenya. You were there for, forgive me for saying so, the fruitless attacks in pursuit of Osama bin Laden. How complicated is this going to be, and how much do you think Americans will have to go through before there is anything approaching resolution, or do we have the vaguest idea?
I'm not at all certain that we can say how long this is going to take. I remember President Kennedy, I believe it was, talked about a long twilight struggle. I think that's what we have to be prepared for in America. This is not something that is going to be done quickly. It is not something that is going to be done in a very surgical way. It's going to take a number of efforts, a number of battles are going to be fought. There are probably going to be some losses. There's going to be life lost on our side, I suspect, as we try to bring people to justice, and beyond that, try to incapacitate the people who perpetrated these crimes. I think we make a mistake if we think this is simply a criminal justice problem. This is much, much bigger than that. What we faced in the Clinton administration, I think, was adequately handled by the criminal justice system. This is well beyond anything that the criminal justice system can handle.
Just one final question, or one more question. As you listen to some of the politicians talking today, and I grant you some people in the media as well, do you think there's a danger that the expectations of the American people will be raised about a more immediate or a short-term solution, and that in itself is dangerous?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that people have to understand we have to respect our enemy here. They are people who are obviously dedicated, fanatical, I would say. They are extremely capable. They are evil in a way that we rarely see in the history of this world. And I think we have to be prepared to engage them over the course of many months, many years, in a whole different variety of forums. And I don't think that we can expect 2 months from now, 6 months from now, this thing to be over, no matter what the military actions that are taken in the short term. It's going to take much beyond that to finally roll these people up and incapacitate them.
So the United States is in for a long haul.
I really believe that's true. I'd like to be able to tell you something other than that, but I don't believe that's the case, and I think the American people need to steel themselves for it. I think the American people are capable of doing this. I think it's incumbent upon our leaders to get the nation ready for what has been described, I think, very accurately as a war.
Eric Holder, thank you very much for your time. Eric Holder in our Washington Bureau night, the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States, and at one point the Acting Attorney General of the United States in the Clinton administration. Telling us what all of the people most familiar with this have told us today. This is going to be a long struggle.